Brought to you by concordiatheology.org, bringing you resources that support the vigorous life of the mind in service of the gospel of Christ.
Welcome to Tangible, Theology Learned and Lived. We're exploring the ways in which theology permeates all aspects of life. Through conversations with faculty at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis, we will challenge you to deepen your theology and live out your faith in Christ. I'm your producer and host, Jessica Bordelot. I'll talk with a variety of professors on a variety of topics, something different every episode, but all pointing to the intersection of faith and daily life. It's tangible, theology learned and lived. Today we're discussing the American novelist Flannery O'Connor. She earned her place among the most well-known Southern Gothic authors with 2 novels and over 30 short stories. Her unique perspective as a devout Catholic growing up in mid-century Georgia deeply influenced her writing. Grotesque and sardonic, she described her writings in this quote, "To the hard of hearing you shout, and for the almost blind you draw large and startling figures." Here to talk about those startling figures are Dr. David Schmitt and Dr. Joel Biermann. Dr. David Schmitt is a professor of homiletics and literature here at Concordia Seminary. In addition to his Master's of Divinity, he earned a master's degree and PhD in English. His most prestigious area of work would be his weekly work on the podcast we produce together, Lectionary Kickstart. Check it out. His areas of expertise include preaching and the intersection of faith and literary culture. One of the authors that he explores in his Christianity and literature class is Flannery O'Connor. He wrote of her, "She has such a powerful grasp on the theology of the cross that it's hard to resist her short stories." Dr. Schmitt, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Dr. Joel Biermann has been a professor of systematic theology here at Concordia Seminary since 2002. In addition to his Master's of Divinity, he earned a PhD in philosophy. He first encountered the works of Flannery O'Connor while doing his graduate work. After reading A Good Man is Hard to Find, he wrote that he was summarily blown away and hooked. Dr. Biermann, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
So, Dr. Schmitt, of all the authors that you could choose to explore in your Christianity and literature class, you included Flannery O'Connor. Why do you include her?
The way she approaches the faults of the church it still resonates today. And so she has a way of uncovering our faults that I appreciate. Yeah. And so I think they benefit from the ease of reading, the complexity of her work, and then the way in which she speaks into issues of faith that still resonate among us today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The first time I read a short story of hers, I have to grieve for the terrible demise of the characters that she has made sympathetic in my eyes.
Yes. Yeah. I know, that's the thing. She has this way, even though you know where the story's going, she causes you to empathize with the characters that she is going to destroy.
Right, and then she kills them.
And usually because those characters are bearing the faults that you yourself have, which is why you empathize with them. Yeah. Because you don't see them as faults, you see them as your virtues. And then she kind of uncovers that that's not what they are. So,
right. Yeah.
How do your students react to her stories?
They usually are mystified at the very beginning. And then once they get the hang of it, then they love it. Yeah, it's kind of like introducing them to some type of murder and mayhem Netflix series, right? I mean, you're going to be shocked at the beginning, but then after a while, you're like, okay, I see what's going on. Yeah.
Well, that's one thing she wrote about her own writing, is that she made it shocking so that people would pay attention. So what was she shocking them with, and why was she shocking them?
Well, she's shocking them with the reality of the way in which God works in the opposite of what you would expect, and sometimes the opposite of what you would desire. That God is going to be found at work in the hardest places, doing the strangest things.
Yeah, that comes through very clearly. And, on the shocking part, so as you introduced in your lead up here, I read Flannery O'Connor not knowing much. I had just encountered a few quotes from her, people would reference her, so I thought, okay, I need to read her. So I sat down and read A Good Man is Hard to Find, knowing nothing.
Oh, wow.
And and I just see what she's about. So I read it. And that's why I was blown away, because I had no idea where she was going to go with it.
Right.
And then when she does it, it's like, I can't believe you just did that. And just, wow. And so that it was a shock. But see, the cool thing about O'Connor is, even if you know the end, she is so rewarding to read.
She is.
It's like Shakespeare. You keep going back again and again and again because it's just so good.
Right.
And that's how O'Connor is. And so even if we spill the beans on these stories, as we're going to be doing today, doesn't keep you from reading them. You should read them anyway.
In fact, she actually, that's her whole philosophy of experienced meaning, right? Is that she desires to evoke for you experiences that become meaningful. And so as you're reading, that's why her fiction is so experiential, is that she's working with the senses and she's desiring you to feel something before you know it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes it so rewarding to read it.
She is, and her use of the English language is so good, and the style that she writes in is just so delightful. It just really is. She's light, she's not heavy-handed, and she pulls you along. It's just a delight to read her.
Yeah, and she's when you read, so she's got the fiction. I mean, the best thing to do is to buy the complete short stories, and you've got those short stories to read. They're arranged chronologically in the order of her writing them, and then she has her Mystery and Manners, which was never published in her lifetime, but it's a collection of her lectures, which are more theoretical about faith and fiction and how all of this works. And she's got such a wit in her lectures, and that's what's enjoyable. I mean, like somebody asked her, I think this was they had made A Good Man is Hard to Find into a television program and a television show, and they were interviewing her for it. And he said, the guy said, "Would you like to say something about the story?" And she said, "No, I would not." She said, because, when anybody asks her what the meaning of a story is, she says, "Well, read it. If I could summarize the meaning, I wouldn't have written the story," right? Because that's the idea, is that you have experienced meaning, that you come to meaning through the sensory experiences of life. And it's part of her understanding of the way in which God works with creatures and creation and the incarnation, is that you come to your understanding of meaning through these experiences. She has that line where she says that understanding, there's a difference between understanding faith and learning it by standing with Abraham trembling as you hold the knife. And that's just, that is the idea, right? Is that the experience of faith is something you can learn about faith without even knowing what to call faith.
Right.
And that's what she does so well in her fiction. Yeah.
So she was devout Catholic. She was living in mid-century Georgia, so she's surrounded by fundamental Southern Baptists, right?
Yes.
And so she's kind of at odds with the Christians around her. But why should we read her today? Specifically, a lot of our listeners might be Lutheran. Why would Lutherans read her today?
Well, I think it's the theology of the cross, that she just has a wonderful grasp on God working in ways that are beyond our understanding, and God being present in the midst of the suffering experiences of life. She once had that line. She said, "Suffering is not a problem to be fixed, but a mystery to be endured." And I like that.
Oh, I love that too.
That language of mystery is usually a way she talks about the presence of God. And so God's in suffering, but you're not, it's not a benefit to you. You endure it, and it's a mystery that you endure. It's just she has a way of saying that. So that's, I think, why. But, interestingly, that whole issue with the fundamentalists and the Catholics is that one of the things you find in her fiction is that she's writing at a time when the mainline denominations are moving to kind of humanitarian, social...
sliding to the social gospel.
Right, yeah. And she says that the Catholics have a lot more in common with the fundamentalists because they have a wild, fiery God who is not operating
They're anti-culture in a sense.
Right, yeah.
And I think she's right about that.
Yeah.
So, here, I'll answer your question, Jessica. And since you don't know how to read me, I'll really surprise you on this one.
Bring it on.
So the reason Lutheran should read Flannery O'Connor is because she writes beautiful, wonderful literature, and you should read her for the sheer joy of reading her. And that's the best excuse of all. You don't need to leverage it to some sort of theological purpose or try to, what's the meaning here? Don't ruin it. Just read it and let it happen.
Read it. Yeah.
And that's the reason you should read her, because she's just good. And I'm on a campaign that we should be embracing what is beautiful for the sake of what is beautiful. It doesn't have to have any other justification besides it's just good stuff. Enjoy it and delight in it and celebrate that here's a sister in Christ who gets it, and what a joy to walk along with her. That's the reason I think we should read it.
Good enough for me, although I've never heard her work called beautiful.
Oh, it's profoundly
It's fabulous,
beautiful.
but I don't know if it's beautiful. It's terrifying.
And she has her dark stories, but she's got such extraordinary bright ones too. I mean, Revelation.
Oh, yeah.
And in the story she tells about the grandfather and his son or his grandson when they go off to Atlanta and get lost in the city.
And when
the redemption that comes and the forgiveness, it's just.
But the betrayal.
The betrayal is
my gosh,
shocking and
man.
horrible. But then and that's what makes the forgiveness that comes astounding.
I know.
And it just brings you to tears. You think, I can't believe the kid did that. It's just, man.
The way she phrases things, they're amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're very strange stories, shocking stories, and but they're experiential, and I think the way to approach them is first by the experience, as you're saying, rather than look for meaning.
And that's what I'm getting at with the idea of the beauty. The beauty is the resonance with what is, and her ability to capture reality so profoundly. There's beauty there. It's profound beauty.
Now, Dr. Schmitt, you chose two of her short stories to focus
did.
on today, one from early in her career, one from later. So we're going to talk about The Crop and Parker's Back.
Right.
So let's talk about The Crop. Why did you choose that story?
Well, it's an early story, and for me, she only has two stories that she wrote about writers. And so this one and The Enduring Chill, those are the only two stories that she has about writers, and both of them are not exemplary writers.
Right.
So she says, so it's an early piece of hers where she's talking about a woman writing, and she herself is a woman writing. And I think at the time she's at the the writers' workshop at Iowa, and so it's a piece that lays out, by the negative, lays out what she believes the vocation of a writer is. Because that's the big thing about O'Connor, is that for her, writing was her vocation. It was her calling. It's something that God had called her to do. It was not a job. And she didn't approach it as a job. She approached it religiously as what she had been called to do. And I think the Crop throws out a really good picture of what she thinks writing is not in terms of Miss Willerton. And so, brief summary of the story. You have a woman, Miss Willerton, who's living with three other people, a man and two other women, and she's trying to earn a living as a writer. And then she gets to her typewriter. She enters into this imaginative world where she's trying to write a story, and kind of becomes engulfed in her own story and falls in love with a character that she's created, which is just hilarious, and then gets awakened and forced to go to the grocery store and be immersed in real life for a while. And so that's just the basic summary of the story.
And she's trapped, though. She's trapped in that house. Because the one woman just pushes her around, goes through a drawer, takes out books she doesn't like. I would hate that. So,
well, there seems to be some kind of relationship between them, perhaps sisters or something.
Right,
Yeah.
But I right away felt bad for her because
well, you see,
that would be
and
the
that's
worst.
the thing. O'Connor opens by creating a very sympathetic character.
Right.
You find yourself caring about Miss Willerton, and why? Why are some of the reasons that you care about her?
Because she's putting up with these women and telling her what to do, and she's not being rude back to them. she's trying to secretly do the things that she wants to do.
Right.
Because she must be trapped for some reason that she can't go. And then she loves the story that she's writing.
Right.
How
So you
sympathetic
end
is
up
that?
so you start out sympathizing with her.
Yes.
But by the end, how do you feel about her? See, for me, that's where the reversal comes.
Yeah,
And so the good thing, I mean, the reason I chose it, it's an early work, it's about writing, but it also showcases O'Connor's use of irony.
Right.
I mean, she is so ironic as a writer. And so in this story, right, so she's going to write a story. She chooses to write about some sharecroppers, right?
The character Miss Willerton does.
Right, Miss Willerton chooses to write about, chooses to write about some sharecroppers.
Guess you can use the hookworm, be a nice touch.
I know.
The hookworm thing, that's a social concern.
Nice.
And that's the thing is
And
that
tell us why you're saying that.
Well, because she wants to make it have some kind of social meaning, and the hookworm epidemic will be the perfect hook she can use to make it have social meaning, so she can get these sharecroppers and then bring a social angle. She's got it all figured out.
Right. And for O'Connor, this is not how you write.
Yeah.
You don't let the social themes of the day determine what you're
You're
writing.
not writing there's not a moral.
There's not a moral.
See, this is why people go crazy about O'Connor. They're trying to find what's the moral of the story. There probably isn't one.
You don't choose your story on the basis of the social proclivities of how well it's going to sell.
Yep.
You don't choose your story on the basis of the themes that you're trying to. You don't even choose your story on the basis of what you want your character to teach somebody.
Right.
And this is the thing. So she starts out with this story of the sharecropper. And when you look at the sharecropper, she talks about the sharecropper and his wife, right? And she falls in love with the sharecropper. And she describes the sharecropper in very clear details.
He's kind of mediocre, or even maybe average or a little sub-average. And so you get the sense that Miss Willie, doesn't have real high standards.
Right, yeah.
She knows where she fits, and she's willing to settle for the middle of the road. It was just kind of interesting, because she doesn't create this ideal.
No. And then later, the woman would be more or less pretty, yellow hair, fat ankles, mud-colored eyes. But then at the very end, when she goes to town to pick up the groceries, right?
And she encounters the couple.
At the very end, she's out there and she sees a woman who was plump with yellow hair, fat ankles, and muddy-colored eyes. And then her husband, the man, was long-waisted, shaggy. His shoulders were stooped. There were yellow knots along the sides of his large red neck. He had straight teeth and sad eyes and a rash over his forehead.
So it's the two characters that she wrote, and now she sees someone who looks like them.
But she doesn't recognize it. And this is the thing, right? This is the irony, is that she wants to write about a social issue. She makes up these characters to fit her social issue. She falls in love with this character. And then this all gets interrupted by her having to go to the store. And so she goes to the store, and when she meets real people, she doesn't see that they are the true subject.
The embodiment of the very things that she's been trying
The
to
embodiment
idealize.
of fiction. That you write about life. You don't write about themes. You look at the world in which you live, you receive it as a gift, and you ponder it and look at it for a long time, and that's the stuff out of which you create stories.
Yep.
And so O'Connor gives us this woman who is a writer who's doing everything wrong.
Okay, because she's writing about sharecroppers. She doesn't know about sharecroppers. In the end, she wants to write about the Irish, but she doesn't seem to know who the Irish are.
Right, she's choosing these themes, and she doesn't see people.
Okay. But I'm glad I didn't write a paper for you, because I thought completely different things about it.
Oh, what did you see? What did you see?
I thought the woman, when she saw the couple, that her writing in the flesh, like the actual sacramental, the actual tangible representation of what she was writing, she's like, oh, no, I don't like this. This is too real. I don't want that man anymore. Look how real he is. He's with this woman. I don't want her.
Well, I think you're right about the resistance to reality.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is that the writer immerses herself in reality. And this is the thing. I mean, O'Connor, the church wanted certain kinds of writers. They wanted to dictate the kind of writing that should be written, the pious fiction that would be appropriate reading for godly people.
Yeah, sure.
And so the church was calling for a certain kind of writing. The culture was calling for another kind of writing. And they wanted writing that, and O'Connor talks about this in her essays, they wanted writing that celebrated America as, the best nation on earth, having a superior way of life. And the church was resistant to O'Connor because her writing didn't seem very pious. You shoot a grandmother,
Yeah.
It didn't seem very pious. And the culture resisted her writing because they felt that dogma would cause her to misread things, that she would write according to the teachings of her church. And O'Connor had this beautiful essay where she talks about how dogma frees her to write realistically, because she knows that deep down at the bottom of all of creation is God. And so she can write about real life. And if she writes about real life and gets it real, God will be present in it.
Right, because there's the absolute connection between the reality and the Creator Himself.
Yes.
And so they're
yes.
they can't possibly be at odds.
Right.
And so to pursue reality is inevitably to pursue God's truth.
Right.
And God Himself.
And so she was so freed to write.
Right.
And, so,
and that's something we should all embrace, because that's exactly the way it should work. Which is, and see, this gets into something as mundane as just lean into your vocations, because this is always godly.
Yes.
Right? And this is what Luther nails.
Right. And
Exactly
so this
right.
is her vocation as a writer,
Yep.
is to look at the world. She calls it a long look, to give the world a long look, and which is exactly what Miss Willerton doesn't do.
Right.
When she sees these characters. She can't give them the long look. She can't recognize that this is reality here. And if you look closely at it and develop it, you're going to be dealing with the things of God.
Instead, she creates her own fiction.
Right.
Then, if these are the things that she doesn't want to be, what does she want to be?
She wants to be a writer who doesn't start with a theme,
Right. She wants to be a faithful witness to reality.
to what she sees.
Yeah.
That God has called her and given her a vision, to look at reality closely and to give voice to it.
And the brokenness of human creatures sure comes through.
Right.
Because that's reality.
And that's where God is present.
That's right.
And that
in the
God is
brokenness.
present in that brokenness.
That's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. It really
It is. It is.
I have a quote. She said that the stories are hard, but they are hard because there's nothing harder or less sentimental than Christian realism. What is Christian realism? What does she mean by
Well,
that?
for her, Christian realism is much deeper, and she even pokes fun at herself when she says, she talks about Christian realism in the essay where she's talking about that. She notes how people look at my stories and they say, these things don't really happen. How can that be realistic? But she's looking at a deeper realism, the reality that God has created this world and that God has chosen graciously to inhabit it in the midst of suffering. That for her is the Christian realism. So it's not the literary movement of realism, which would be Henry James and all of that stuff, but it's Christian realism.
And it's not a Reinhold Niebuhr realism, which was also prevalent at the time when she's writing, of kind of being pragmatic and get down to stuff. She's not doing that either.
Right, no.
No.
So when I read O'Connor as a Catholic author, surrounded by people who are Christians of a different kind, what do Catholics have that perhaps Baptists don't? Is sacraments, right?
Yeah.
And as a devout Catholic, she would value the sacraments. And so when I'm reading these stories, it always seems that there's like a tangible representation of God that's rejected by the people around it, right? And I think that leads us to Parker's Back, perhaps. That's the other short story that you suggested that we read.
Yeah. So the summary of Parker's Back, basically, the opening of the story, you have two individuals who couldn't be further from one another, right? You have Sarah Ruth, who is chaste, she's religious, she's carrying a child, and she's a source of life. She's religious, very pure. She's trying to maintain the religion of purity. And then you have Parker,
But she's more than that, though. She's not beautiful and soft, and you are sympathetic. You said her skin is stretched like onion skin over her face.
No, she's harsh.
And she's harsh.
Yeah,
she is, and she's like,
harsh.
you're a sinner or you're saved, and there's no softness about her.
Right, so she is the
unsympathetic.
stark black and white of fundamentalist purity,
Yep.
Christianity. And so you see her as the source of religious belief and religious enactment. Parker, who is the exact opposite, he is an unbeliever.
Avowed unbeliever.
A devout unbeliever. He's the source of death. Everything he touches breaks. And he's irreligious. He's constantly cursing, using the name of the Lord in vain, but actually using it correctly.
Yeah.
So that's the fun of it. So you've got two characters that are juxtaposed. You have religion and unbelief. You have life and death. And by the end of the story, everything is flipped around.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Ruth is actually the unbeliever, and Parker is the believer. He's the source of life. She's the source of death, in spite of himself. So the Jonah scene, I think, is really important because he's in a bar, and he had just gotten a tattoo of Christ on his back.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about the tattoos first. So,
Okay, yeah.
So he's covered with tattoos, his whole front side.
Right,
Every
and
time
why is he
go
covered
somewhere-
with tattoos?
It was his childhood experience.
Yes.
That's right. He
when
saw
he
a
saw
tattooed
a
man
at
in
the
a
carnival.
circus. Yes.
And and he said it was like it brought him into a whole other reality. He was taken out of himself. He had his first ecstatic experience in his life.
Right.
And it set the trajectory for his entire life.
Yeah, so the line is, Parker had never before felt the least motion of wonder in himself. Until he saw that man at the fair, it did not enter his head that there was anything out of the ordinary about the fact that he existed. Even then it did not enter his head, but a peculiar unease settled in him. It was as if a blind boy had been turned so gently in a different direction that he did not know his destination had been changed. I mean, isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
The passive voice, he had been turned
Exactly.
in a different direction and didn't know. He's blind.
That's right.
He doesn't know. Yep. And it was so gentle that he had no clue. And that's the beauty of it, right? Yep. That's exactly what you're talking about.
That's it.
Man proposes, but God disposes.
Precisely.
Right?
Precisely.
Yeah. He always wanted to have that experience of wonder, but he could not find that within himself. And so he's constantly adding more tattoos, but they fight against him. They don't work. He likes them for a while. They get more colorful, but they don't work.
And that's the irony in all this, because it's like he's doing it to be rebellious, but it's leading him to the actual culmination, which is going to be his forced submission to God's reality in Christ.
Who is he? Right. Who is he? He wants to experience wonder in himself. And the wonder he will experience will be the wonder that God reveals to him.
That's right.
At the end of the story, when he is, like you were saying, not in his own desire, he is that witness that's trying to save Sarah Ruth.
Right. And so that gets back to the Jonah thing, which
yes.
you were picking up on.
Right, yeah. So Jonah, he's in the bar, he has this tattoo, they slap him on the back, it hurts, they pull up his shirt, they see that this tattoo of the face of Jesus.
Well, back up though. Our listeners need to understand how that got there. So he's driving a tractor, he makes a mistake, he drives into a tree, it bursts into flames, his shoes are blown off. He runs away.
And what is that alluding to?
Moses and
right,
the
good.
burning
the
bush.
Call of Moses.
And he runs away right to a tattoo parlor and said, I need God on my back. He has no tattoos on his back, he said, because he can't see them, so it doesn't matter. But he wants a tattoo of God on his back.
Think about that. The whole point of all of the tattoos he has are ones he can see. And it isn't about what he's able to see. It's about the fact that he is being seen by God. Right? He's a blind man who's been turned in another direction so gently he doesn't know he's going that way. It isn't about the tattoos that you can see, that you can point to your life and say, here's God is working and here God is working. It's about the fact that you are being seen by a God who is using you, whether you know it or not. I think that's the beauty of this.
And it's the very fact that he can't see his own back.
Right.
He can't see God at work, and it's God who's doing all this and driving into this position. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes right to a tattoo parlor, says, I need a tattoo of God on my back. He looks through the pictures. He can't find it. And then he's drawn by this kind of grotesque one where it's piercing eyes.
It's a very Byzantine
classic.
I'll
read it to you.
It's an icon of Jesus, basically.
Which are terrifying. A lot of them, they don't look real.
Right. You are right that it's terrifying. And that's the interesting thing, right, Jessica, is that notice that the tattoo images in the book he looks at, how are they organized? He starts with the newest.
Yeah, and he
and
goes backwards.
moves to the oldest. And the newest are all friendly images of God.
Yep.
Jesus the Good Shepherd, let the little children come to me,
Yep.
Jesus the physician. And then he starts to encounter these very fiery, strange, frightening images of God who sees everything, right? And it's a testimony to the fact that the American culture has domesticated God. Right? And he is kind of, he doesn't believe in God to begin with, right? He doesn't believe in God, but what he's drawn to is this very ancient image.
And after his encounter at the tree, the tractor, and God has become very real to him.
Yes.
And he has no choice now. And it's sort of like, fine, got to have God. And he's also hoping that this will impress
This is the other
Sarah.
thing, right? This will impress Sarah. I mean, how can she object to seeing Jesus,
Yeah, I've
right?
got Jesus on my back. Come on.
How can
It's everything she
you
loves.
reject him,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
So then it leads up to the story you were saying where he's at a bar and they're
Yeah,
like,
so
oh,
that-
what's your new tattoo?
Right,
He
and
lifts
so
up his
they-
shirt.
And so
They're
they
looking at
start
Jesus.
teasing him, and a fight breaks out, and they throw him out of the bar. And it's at that point that O'Connor says the bar becomes stilled, and she makes an allusion to Jonah.
Well, I like too when they first see the image of Jesus with the piercing eyes, everybody backs up.
Yeah.
And you get the sense of the kid who just threw up. Everybody just kind of pulls back, and there he is
Yeah.
all by himself, and there's Parker all by himself.
And then they cover it and then they make fun of him
Yeah,
after
yeah.
it's covered.
Yeah, after they cover it, right, because they don't want to deal with the reality of it.
This is after they have thrown him out. They ran to the door with him and threw him out. Then a calm descended on the pool hall, as nerve-shattering as if the long barn-like room were the ship from which Jonah had been cast into the sea.
Yeah, she
Okay,
makes it
so
quite clear.
So she's referencing.
Now God is gone and it's peaceful for the sailors.
Right. So she's
Okay.
referencing Jonah.
Okay.
Now, Jonah was a believer who was being sent to unbelieving Nineveh and to bring them to repentance. Parker is an unbeliever being sent to the believer Sarah to bring her to repentance because her religion is a false god. Mm-hmm. And Parker is the representation of the incarnate God. Even though he's an unbeliever, he represents this incarnate God who is enmeshed in the ways of the world and will bring salvation from even a blind child who doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, it's just a wonderful...
Yep.
See, and that's the thing with O'Connor. She always has this ironic twist to things. She'll take familiar stories, but she'll turn them on their head.
Yeah.
And that then causes you to pause and to rethink, well, how is he like Jonah? I mean, he's going to Sarah, who's the believer, and that's what's causing you to think, well, maybe Sarah isn't as much of a believer as we thought she was.
Right.
And maybe Parker is an unbeliever and yet also able to be a prophet of God. I mean, that's kind of the amazing thing about it.
And so Parker himself has gone through this transition.
Yes.
He has been transformed by the event at the tree, and he's been transformed by the event in the pool hall. And Christ on his back, even though he doesn't know what's going on, has become his new reality.
Yes. And now he is this incarnate representation
He is
of the
reality.
person of Christ in the world. And that's why
right.
at the very end, he's crying like a baby. Well, why
reborn.
like a baby? Because he's reborn.
Exactly.
Right. This is a new birth. He finally has this soul that is full of wonder.
Yeah.
That whereas before it was a spider web, and now
Right.
it's this wonderful soul because God is at work in his life.
And
It's
all
so
of his tattoos
amazing.
had never quite come together. They were always disparate.
Yeah.
And now it starts to come together for him, and he knows who he is and what he is.
All right. The final question of the show is always this. What do you want our listeners to remember?
That the world is a nasty, really brutal sort of place. And as I've been telling people lately, the world is going to kill you. It just is. But in the process, God is still at work in it. And O'Connor captures that reality, those realities so wonderfully. And if you just read her for that and just enjoy the picture of reality, then you're appreciating what it's all about.
I agree with that. I think when you read O'Connor, you see a God who has not abandoned his world, but has entered into it to bring about a new creation.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it for today. I'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Biermann. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Dr. Schmitt, I'm glad you were here.
Yep, thank you.
And thank you for listening. You can find more episodes of Tangible on all the major hosting apps or on our website, concordiatheology.org. We have a lot more free resources there. Check it out. If you'd like to see this show continue, you can subscribe for free, share, leave a review. I'm your producer and host, Jessica Bordolo. Join me next time when we talk about the intersection of theology and daily life because it's tangible. Theology learned and lived.